Story 1. The terracotta soldiers in Xi'an have a very unimpressive, low-key entrance. Then you come around a corner and it's just jaw-dropping. I don't know if they've changed the entry, but it's very much under promise, over deliver. Quite awesome. Story 2. The Path of the Gods hike in the Amalfi Coast is absolutely incredible. The views you get from there are some of the best in the world. Also, the road to Hana on Maui is highly recommended. I highly recommend the Shaka Guide app to play on your trip. It tells you when to pull off and go look at waterfalls. Story 3. Honestly, I'd argue all of those scenic places are great. You just need really good weather. I went to the cliffs of Moher in Ireland, and it was beautiful. Highly recommended for a day out, very peaceful. Story 4. The Louvre in Paris has a well-deserved reputation. There is so much in there that nobody ever talks about. When I visited, I spent hours just looking at sculptures and barely even got to any of the paintings. The nearby Musée d'Orsay is also pretty impressive. The museum itself was originally built as a train station in the late 19th century, and I had a great time just admiring its architecture in addition to the art on display there. Story 5. Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Went for the first time last year and barely had time to see everything in a day. It's like the Smithsonian crossed with Disney World, with creative exhibitions of actual spacecraft. We even got to speak with actual astronauts. Story 6. Santorini was somehow more impressive to me in person than the social media or Instagram pictures made it seem. Something about being able to see the remnants of an absolutely huge natural disaster was really appreciable. The part one shouldn't say is that other islands in the area that are less popular are equally, if not more beautiful and cheaper to stay on. Everyone keeps going to Santorini, though. I'm going to take my next vacation on another island for less money while I pull up pictures of the caldera. Story 7. Driving south down the Pacific Coast Highway from San Francisco to Big Sur. Ideally during spring, there's a reason it's the most traveled highway in the world. The scenery is absolutely stunning. It's beautiful regardless, but north to south presents better views as you're hugging the cliffs. Story 8. I was worried I would be let down by Venice, but it was absolutely everything it was made out to be. Actually, everywhere I have been in Italy has exceeded expectations, Lake Como and Milan as well. Story 9. Schloss Neuschwanstein and the castles surrounding it, including the one from his family, are a sight to behold. It's a little bit expensive, but incredibly, the individual behind these marvels integrated colored lights into the backgrounds of his favorite operas and theaters within his castle. Colored lights. Imagine that in 1869, if you have a penchant for gold, glamour, expensive items, history, and even a touch of architecture, then it's truly amazing. Bavaria for the win. Story 10. Petra, Jordan. It's insane. I've traveled all over Europe, but this was the only country I visited in the Middle East, and it was extraordinary. As a side note, a safari in Tanzania was slightly overrated. Still awesome, I would definitely do it again, but a little overrated. Story 11. The French Quarter in New Orleans is often too narrowly associated with Bourbon Street, and this is unfortunate. The French Quarter boasts remarkable architecture, history, restaurants, and people. It is not merely one street filled with adult bars and intoxicated individuals, nor does it represent New Orleans in its entirety. There are countless amazing parts of the city that even a week's visit won't allow you to fully explore. However, as a primary tourist attraction, I must say my recommendation is the French Quarter. A lesser-known attraction in the area is the Bayou Savage National Wildlife Refuge. It is absolutely beautiful. American wetlands are a rapidly decreasing ecosystem, and Bayou Savage stands as one of the few protected areas in Louisiana. Given its closeness to the French Quarter, any visit to New Orleans should definitely include a stroll through the Bayou's boardwalks. Story 12. I think that the underground tour in Seattle is worth the money, and I am a native of Washington State. At least the last time that I went, it was worth the price of the ticket. It is so unique and the guides do a good job. Also, Pike Place Market is a place that I, as a local, genuinely enjoy and visit for my own purposes. I go there to eat at the Soundview Cafe and buy incense at Tenzing Momo. There are some things that are overpriced, but there are some things that locals love. Story 13. Cliffs of Maher. You know you're going to see a cliff. It's hard to hype that or have high expectations. It just is exactly what it is. But once you're there, looking over the cliffs, there is just this wonderful feeling of genuine awe. It isn't life-changing or anything, but it just subtly permeates to your core and makes you glad that you saw it. It's like checking something off your bucket list that you didn't realize should have been on it. Story 14. For me, it was the Lincoln Memorial. I had seen pictures of it all my life, obviously, but until I actually walked the steps, I had no idea how amazingly large and impressive it was. Story 15. Taj Mahal. That was amazing. Worth the many hours of flight up there, the long drive from Delhi, the uncertain guide who may or may not have tried to kidnap us, the horrific hotel. For 1 hour at the actual place. When he took pictures of us with our phone service was turned off when he handed them back. I ended up saying I wanted a selfie with him and promptly sent it to my parents. Later, we went to a marble workshop where the expensive stuff was on the main floor and the cheaper stuff was in the basement. They tried to insist on serving us tea in a back room in the basement. My colleague leaned over and said, "They're kidnapping us, right?" So we edged over towards the stairs and ran up. Thankfully, our driver was there when we got upstairs because he didn't trust our guide. Still worth it. Story 16. Since I mainly see the United States and Europe here, I'm going to add some of my favorite places from my travels to Asia. 1. The Peace Memorial Museum in Hiroshima is one of the most intense, emotional, but beautiful experiences I have ever had. I personally think it is even better than the 9/11 Museum in New York. 2. Ubud in Bali is an incredibly beautiful town surrounded by forests and rivers. It is a nature escape at its best. A stay there will definitely leave you feeling more relaxed. 3. Fo Guangshan Buddha Museum near Kaohsiung in Taiwan is the biggest and most beautiful temple I have ever seen. Just the scale of it is jaw-dropping, and all of it is immaculate and stunning. 4. Gyeongbokgung Palace in Seoul, South Korea, is absolutely spectacular. It can get crowded, but the crowds are well-deserved. I cannot possibly overstate how gorgeous it is. 5. Shiratani Unsukyo Gorge on Yakushima Island in Japan is an amazing place to go for a hike. There are several connected loops, and you just pick the distance you are comfortable with. The gorge, the mountains, and the forest are all breathtaking. For those who have seen the Studio Ghibli anime movie, Princess Mononoke, this place is the inspiration for the forest in that movie. Story 17. The fjords in Norway. We went to the Tromsø area, above the Arctic Circle, and it is the most beautiful place I have ever been. And I lived in Alaska, nearly any market in Mexico City, Tikal National Park in Guatemala, Pompeii. Story 18. The Great Wall of China is usually pretty crowded, but it's still worth visiting because of its sheer scale and historical importance. It's also a lot less touristy than some other popular destinations like the Eiffel Tower or Statue of Liberty. Another underrated attraction is the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland. They're beautiful and not as well known as some other European landmarks. Story 19. City Museum. If you have kids in St. Louis, it's a huge warehouse that has been converted into a playground using recycled materials. It's really something to see. They always have cool demonstrations like glass blowing, and they used to have a circus. Story 20. Greece. We have typically steered away from the more heavily touristy parts/islands, but even the places filled with tourists are beautiful and exciting, and the people are always warm and welcoming. I am a big fan of Crete, especially the small towns, but everywhere in Greece is wonderful. The markets in Mexico City, Tokyo as a whole, Chinatown in Kuala Lumpur, the hawker stalls of Singapore, Angkor Wat blew my mind. Ubud, Bali is great every time. Pick a neighborhood in Mumbai. Varanasi's ghats are also incredible. I also still love New Orleans with my whole heart in spite of the gentrification. Story 21. The Northern Lights. Seeing the Aurora Borealis dance across the night sky is a bucket list experience for many travelers. Whether you're in Iceland, Norway, or Canada, witnessing this natural phenomenon is an unforgettable experience. Story 22. Point Reyes, just north of the San Francisco Bay Area, is especially captivating if you can visit during the whale migration. Another must-see destination is the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Flight Museum. A third recommendation would be the Ford Museum in the Detroit area, and if possible, visiting the F-150 assembly line is also quite fascinating. Additionally, the cliff dwellings in New Mexico are noteworthy. While there, you are close to the lava fields that you can explore on foot. Story 23, the Grand Canyon. You think you've seen it all, that you're going to just another famous spot. Then you catch a glimpse of it for the first time and are just utterly in awe of how huge the thing is.